With the culmination of 10 years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in 2019 with Avengers Endgame, it seems a little premature at this point in time to be looking at Avengers 5. However, of course, many fans, myself included, are excited for the prospects of a 5th Avengers movie, which at this point is simply inevitable. However, we do have to give Marvel time to build back up to a big brand new threat. And it seems as if right now they're focusing on other stories and establishing separate teams apart from the Avengers across the MCU. From the Thunderbolts to the Dark Avengers to obviously the Fantastic Four, and building upon the multiversal saga with Spider-Man No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, and I'm sure way more stories to come. We've also seemingly introduced several villains that will play major roles that likely will not end up being teamed up against in the future, such as Kang the Conqueror. With that said though, we do have one of our first reports about Avengers 5, several years before the film is obviously slated to come out, and potentially maybe even a few years before it's even officially announced. This report is actually coming directly from the Russo brothers, who were asked if they would ever return for an Avengers 5. While most of the comments we hear from various actors such as Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr. potentially returning to their roles as Captain America and Iron Man respectively, who seem to comment most of the time that their stories are finished, but you never know, the Russo brothers have a very peculiar answer. It seems to indicate that they may in fact be involved in Avengers 5 at some point in time. Obviously right now over at Marvel, Avengers 5 is not the focus at all, with the next major team to be introduced into the MCU being the Fantastic Four. But right now, of course, the multiversal saga is dominating the storyteller group over there. In an interview, the Russo brothers were actually asked though about the prospects of returning for an Avengers 5, and I find their answer to be really compelling. The Russo brothers also took time to comment about the Scarlett Johansson lawsuit, which was recently resolved. The Russos said this concerning the lawsuit: "I'm glad that the lawsuit's been resolved. I don't think it was indicative of the significant change that's been happening. The resolution speaks volumes about the respect for artists moving forward in this changing landscape." Joe Russo's comments for potentially returning to Marvel though, likely for Avengers 5 or a Secret Invasion or Secret War story arc, is very compelling, as when directly asked about a Marvel return, this is what Joe Russo had to say: "It would be inappropriate for me to comment on a deal if we were in the middle of it." So what exactly does this mean? Well, obviously, if Joe and Anthony Russo were not contacted about joining with Marvel for a future project, they likely would have simply just said, "No, we're not involved and we haven't been asked." And if it was something that had been confirmed and that they had come to an agreement on, he likely would have said something to the effect of, "We'll just have to wait and see." But to directly say that it would be inappropriate for him to comment on something if they were in the middle of making a deal is hugely suspicious to the fact that they're obviously making a deal. In terms of the roster for the next Avengers team and the story for the next Avengers team, there's a ton of rumors going around at the moment, including many people speculating that the Dark Avengers could potentially get their own Disney Plus show or their own film, or that the next version of the Avengers could be the Young Avengers, with Avengers 5 later down the line, and that there'll be two separate running Avengers stories at the same time. We've also heard rumors about the West Coast Avengers and the Defenders as well, but nothing at this point is concrete. Honestly, it doesn't even appear as if Marvel is actually building towards their next Avengers team at this point in time, focusing on a different storytelling method, which I think is really smart. Who knows if Marvel will actually even want to bring the Russos back on for a 5th Avengers outing. The Russos are obviously wonderful filmmakers, but it could be that Marvel wants to move in a different direction. With that said though, I do think it would be foolish not to give the Russo brothers a Marvel film down the line, even if it doesn't relate to the Avengers, as Captain America Civil War, The Winter Soldier, Infinity War, and Endgame, in my own opinion, are among the top echelon of every Marvel film that's ever been made. Not to mention the Russo brothers' incredible ability to balance an ensemble. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and move on to some other Marvel news. We also received news that Secret Invasion starring Samuel L. Jackson and of course the other Skrulls has officially entered production. The Secret Invasion being a Disney Plus show that's likely to release sometime in either 2022 or early 2023. Along with this news, we move over to the Sony side of Marvel as we actually got the confirmed title for Spider-Verse 2. that being Spider-Verse Across the Spider-Verse, as well as confirmation that not only will we be getting one episode of Hawkeye on Thanksgiving Day, but we'll be getting the first 2 episodes of the season. Moving on to the more horrific side of the MCU, we actually have some of our first Blade news. We got confirmation that the original Blade director, Bassam Tariq, would actually contribute as a writer to the Marvel reboot, as he's obviously someone that knows the character of Blade exceptionally well. And now that we actually have his blessing for this Marvel reboot, I'm way more excited for Blade than I was before. The first 2 Blade movies, in my opinion, are some of the most underrated Marvel and superhero movies in general. And now to cover some of our rapid fire news, let's go ahead and wrap it up with some Eternals news, the most recent Marvel project that is headed to the big screen. The premiere for the Eternals will actually be this coming Monday, with Marvel actually teasing reveals and surprises. Not to mention, we'll likely get to hear some of the first reactions for the Eternals, which many people are speculating that the Eternals could actually be an Oscar contender for this year. If you're interested on some of the first reactions for Eternals, be sure to hit that subscribe button, as that's something that I would love to cover here on the channel. Anyway, my friends, I have a few questions for the end of the video. How do you feel about the Russo brothers potentially returning to helm another Marvel project? Do you think that this would be Secret Wars or potentially an Avengers 5 story? How do you feel about the other movies that they have made for the MCU? And for a more personalized question I have, how do you like this video format? How do you like the idea of covering a major story at the beginning of a video and then talking about sort of the individual smaller stories as the video goes on? Topics that may not be worth their own specific video on the channel, but still stuff that we want to cover here. How do you feel about this format, and should we continue with it in the future? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. Hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and have a great day.